Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber with Everyone Loves Guitar, and we're going to do our second interview today with Adam Zimmon because we just had an interview, it seems like, talking and just chatting, which was great. Like I said, I'm with Adam Zimmon. He's currently on tour with Ziggy Marley, and he played on Ziggy's last two records. He's also worked with, check this out, Glen Campbell, Shakira, Iggy Pop, which we're definitely going to talk about, Dido, Lissie, Enrique Iglesias, Alejandro, Sanz. That was pretty impressive, right? So you could tell I'm from the Bronx. And the Spam Allstars, to name a few. And that was impressive how I pronounced that. He's also made two records and toured with Paige McConnell from Fish. And he's also in a band with Paige called Vida Blue. And that band is made up of Paige McConnell, Oteil Burbridge, of course, from the Allman Brothers and Dead and Company, and Russell Batiste from the Funky Meters. They tracked a new record early this year, and hopefully we'll see a record out of them this year. Originally, Adam's from Long Island. He got his professional start in Miami, and he lived there until 2008, playing with Cuban bands and a lot of different Latin and Caribbean acts, which is how he kind of got his foot in the door with reggae. And then he relocated to LA, where he currently lives with his wife and their young child. And congratulations on that, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I appreciate it. So, did you go to Miami to go to University of Miami to go to school there?
I did, but I didn't go to the music school. I didn't go as a music major. I went sort of as an undecided arts and science, and I didn't really know what I was going to pursue at the time. I did go down there and I saw all the courses they offered, but I just got in as just a regular student. And strangely enough, one of the things I was into was golf, and I was pretty good at golf.
Well, that's the right place to be.
Well, I thought so, but then I realized, so when I got down there, two things happened. I realized, one, I wasn't going to be able to get on a golf team because I wasn't good enough, probably not strong enough or big enough. Once you college level, I was pretty good in high school, but by the time I got when I saw what the college level was dealing with, I was like 120 pounds. And people don't think of golf that way, but but it makes sense because it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing as any other sport, high school to college. The size is massive. The jump. Exactly. So then I sort of got down there, and I'm in school. I'm sort of like, well, I'm not really going to be doing that. And in my first sort of semester, I went and walked through the music school. I was into music. I played in bands in high school, but it wasn't really something I was like solely focused on. It was just another hobby, and I was really into it and passionate about it. But I wish I had really known earlier on and was more focused on it. But I walked through the music school and I heard guys playing jazz there, and it's a really heavy school.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought, like, well, I'm not going to do that either. So I spent the first semester sort of in that, like every other college student, sort of being like, well, you have to figure out what you're going to do with your life, pick your major, which is what you're led to believe.
Man. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
It's kind of funny. So yeah, I went down there undecided arts and science, and I kind of snuck into the music school through the back door in a way, because I wasn't, well, let me back around. Basically, I still was fortunate to, there's pressure. They're trying to tell you to pick a major. So, there's sort of a pressure to figure out, like, well, what do you want to do with your life? Which is crazy in hindsight, but it's just the way things work. And, I was really fortunate enough that my father still, held to the belief, and he said, well, you have to study what you're interested in and pursue what you're interested in.
How cool is that?
And the courses that were most interesting to me were music courses. So in the second semester, I thought, well, I could be a music industry major, and then I could have a principal in jazz guitar. And I met I'd met an older guy who I love, who played great, and he helped me sort of to like prep for an audition. And he literally said, like, I had been studying and taking lessons and stuff, but it wasn't a focus. And he said, well, this is, here's a 2-5-1 lick, and you play this over this, and you plug this in it. And I had learned some stuff in high school and had been into Steely Dan, and already had kind of developed a thing for, Pat Metheny and, that type of stuff, along with all the other rock stuff. But so he sort of prepped me for this audition, and being that it wasn't for performance major, and that I already went to the school, I got in. And so I passed that audition to be a jazz principal with a major in music industry. And but the cool thing about UM is that it's very small. There's like 20 guitar players or 25 guitar players total.
I didn't realize that. That's great.
And at least at the time. And my class was like 5 or 6 guys. So basically, whether you're a performance or not, you're sort of in this pot of guys who are, most of them, way better than you. But there is like sort of groups of guys. There's guys that show up and they're just can speak the language and, play bebop at 18 years old. And then were guys who are like me, who are just sort of like trying to sort of get their head around this stuff. And, I obviously had some sort of feel or grasp. I had been playing in bands and things like that in high school, cover bands. But, had enough to sort of get a toehold to like, to get involved. Basically.
What a cool thing to do to play in a small group of guys that are better than you. Like, what better way to get better on your instrument, Oh
yeah. They were all, almost all of them were so much better. And, in a way it was because I wasn't a performance major. There's still things that aren't available to me. And I do have a recollection of sort of having a feeling like, well, I can't do that. So I need to sort of put the energy into something else. And the guy that sort of helped me, he wasn't a performance major, but he sounded as good as every performance major. So he sort of inspired me to sort of think like, well, I'm just going to get more into, try and put that energy into my feel or, the stuff I'm into, and just have because I can't really, I'm not getting the intense, like, immersion to play, bebop or straight ahead. I'm going to sort of try and, cut my own path that makes a little more sense. And it ended up working out in the sense that as I got further along and I just kept driving, that's all I wanted to do, was play. As I got further along, and some of the guys who are so devoted to jazz, they don't exactly fit into like the rock band world or the gigging world. Yeah. So as I got to be further along in school, there'd be bands and stuff like that. And people would ask me to do that stuff, Yeah. And there's sort of a rock, there was sort of like a rock studio music side of the program. And one of the teachers sort of helped pull me into that too. So, I spent a semester, playing like doing Eric Clapton stuff. And I spent a semester doing, Steely Dan and Toto That's
pretty cool.
So, and it's all really due to like, to a teacher or some guys saying, hey man, come, come do this, and sort of mentoring you along, So
yeah, but they wouldn't have done that if they didn't have if you didn't have promise, you know, if they thought they were wasting their time, they did it because they saw some potential there and they wanted to help
right,
you,
right,
you
and
know, crank out a successful student. Yeah,
right. You get along, and you're, you know, I was into it. I was eager and just and wanted to do whatever I could, and so, you know, God, that's a long answer, but.
But then you moved to LA. What prompted that move? And like once you got there, what'd you do for work?
Well, I was in Miami for a long time, almost 15 years after school.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So I was in school. I stayed in Miami after school.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And basically the inkling was I could have gone back home to New York. But I could live so cheaply in Miami and get a little help from my folks for a year or two. I think I paid $300 a month in rent for the first like couple of years. And so I could just try and pay the bills playing music. So in Miami, I just, you know, was determined to just do whatever I could to get paid, which meant say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. So wedding bands, you know, which never changes basically. But I was able to just hustle and that
but
sort of led
the food chain that you're saying yes to gets higher.
Right. Yeah. But it kind of bounces around too. Basically I was playing in rock bands and, you know, kind of pushing into the local scene, and one of those rock bands got a record deal, and then that record deal kind of gives you a little bit of notoriety around town, and that led to actually the first recording sessions with Shakira. So,
oh, that's cool.
So I had a rock band called, or I was in a rock band, a Spanish language rock band called Fulano de Tal, with some great people.
Wait a minute,
still.
Dude, were you there? Were you there with Michael Ripoll, Nomad?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know him?
He's
an LA cat, but he went to UM, and I think he might be a few years older than you, but not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he did the same thing. He stayed in town, and he was up in Fort Lauderdale playing at the Elbow Room in on the beach.
Right. So it's funny because they so basically. We were signed to BMG, and we were the first Spanish language rock band signed to a major label in the U.S. What that meant was we don't know how to sell your record, and you have to do everything yourself.
I was going to say, okay, great. And then what? All the Spanish rock stations would play you, right?
We drove in a van to play gigs. We'd have a gig in Miami, a gig in Houston, a gig in L.A., a gig in Chicago. We logged a lot of miles, but basically that kind of led into a scenario where at the time I think Shakira was making her second record, and she had I don't know, something was going on where basically if you in that music world, you go at that time you made a record with the Miami Sound Machine.
Yeah.
And she but I guess she wanted something a little more rock, or the people, you know, the production wanted to be a little more rock, and so my roommate was a drummer. He was the first one that got called in, and then that led to me, and that was kind of my first like proper, you know, recording session, or big, you know, recording sessions, and, you know, and also something that a name that I could like attach, that my parents would sort of say, okay, well maybe
you're legit.
This isn't just like a folly, you know, or it's on the, you know, and there were songs on the radio in Spanish radio. You know, my parents are in New York, you know, with the Spanish radio stations on, waiting for these songs. And, you know, so that sort of connected to that. And then that led to all that work. And, so Miami was great for that. And then I had, my old band, the Spam Allstars, that connected to that. So I could be tour, and that kind of started,
So
the thing that sort of floated the boat, to begin with.
And when you moved out to LA to go do more work with Shakira, or she got?
No, I stayed in Miami a long time, up until about 10 years ago. And
so you were there like till 2000s.
Yeah, I left Miami when I was in my, basically towards middle age. I kind of had decided, I'm just gonna pick it up and go.
Man, after Andrew, it was so hectic there. I felt after 94 with Hurricane Andrew, because I lived in Plantation up until like 05.
Right.
And it was just after Hurricane Andrew, everything seemed to be kind of different. It was hectic. It was crowded. It was like aggressive, and Yeah,
I went through. I remember Hurricane Andrew. It went right over my head.
Yeah, and it hit Homestead real bad, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. That's a long story, but so yeah, staying there. I would go on tour, and Miami was a really nice place to live. When you're touring a lot, because you come home and you're in Miami. Yeah, and the Spam Allstars, which is still a great band, is like this collective, really the brainchild of a friend of mine, who's really a genius and a mentor as well. And I urge anyone to check it out. It was sort of this beat based, almost taking its origins from sort of, it's hard to describe. It almost mixes kind of dub with like Cuban music and funk beats and drum machines and things like that. But it sort of gave me the opportunity to, like, when I wasn't playing pop music and touring, I could come home.
Fusion, Miami fusion music is what it sounded like. Yeah.
Yes. And I could come home and, just play whatever I want and be a weirdo, and this band would work, and it continues to work, a couple nights a week, and make records and sort of, be an artist. Yeah. And so I didn't really want to leave, and it was a good place for me. And that's sort of what that band, is what connected me to, like, Page McConnell and that world, because he'd come and seen that band.
Get you.
The interesting sort of side note about that stuff is that you do big pop gigs, and you might get gigs through that are sort of commensurate, right?
Yeah, right.
Might pay well and things like that. But if you have like an oddball creative project that's, art, it encounters you with a whole other world. And a lot of times the things that come from that, maybe they might not be as lucrative, but they can certainly be a lot more, a lot more interesting and more, for me personally, those things end up being, the really great things that leads to. So in a way, like toiling, for little money and doing the heavy lifting in an artsy project can lead you to other things that led me to other things that were, really some of the highlights. And also you get hired because to do what you're doing in that artsy project,
right? Which
is easier than like someone throwing a record at you and saying, learn this.
Well, I think the big takeaway is like, just get out and do as much as you can, because something may not come of it, of any one thing. But if you don't do anything, I promise you, nothing will come. I mean, seriously, nothing will ever, it may not work. Nothing's ever wasted though, man. I mean, you're playing music, or whatever it is you're doing, I'm coming out of the business world, whatever it is you do, you're getting more experience, whatever, something will come of it, as long as you're, not a dick and you're having fun,
0 plus 0 is definitely 0.
Yeah. Right.
Part of staying in Miami for me was that, like, when you're in music school, at least in Miami, it's sort of it's a little bit of an incubator, but it's sort of sequestered.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in a curriculum in a university that's going to be like, get out and gig. The teacher might tell you that, but there's nothing that, that's on you.
There's no work study program.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my feeling at the time when school ended in Miami was that I needed to get good on stage. I needed experience playing on stage, and whether it was blues jams or anything.
Sure.
So and there's no real substitute from that. I remember, thinking I was kind of hot shit and had all this cool stuff that I was working on in school, and going out and playing on stage, and like nobody cared. Yeah. And then a guy coming up after me played like Hendrix, and just like people falling all over him, and he was amazing. And realizing like you have to learn to communicate.
No,
and school doesn't teach you that.
And there was nothing back home, and all the clubs in Long Island had shut down long since then. Yeah,
and I also thought like, going back to New York and Long Island, living outside of Manhattan, like I had enough youthful ignorance to think I was pretty good at the guitar, but I knew enough to know that like I think New York, like Manhattan, would have crushed me. I could not. I didn't.
Or anybody else
at tunes.
Yeah, or anybody else in that situation.
Yeah, like if you're not a jazz like kind of a prodigy, if you're not already great, and everyone's going like, you should hear this guy, he's unbelievable. You're just you're gonna get. Yeah, I thought I would just get crushed, and I didn't want to do the day job. If I had the option to not do the day job,
good for
if
you.
I stayed in Miami.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Awesome. So, but what was the actual trigger that made you go to LA?
To be honest, there was just a feeling of like, okay, I just felt a little bit, I don't want to say dead end because that's a little demeaning to all the great people and everything I was involved with down there. And I was doing some production. It was almost like I was a little too comfortable.
Sure. No, I get that.
And I didn't feel like musically, I loved all the playing I was doing, but it wasn't the entirety of who I was, and Latin music and salsa, all that stuff is great, but I'm still, a guy. I still grew up like wanting to with U2 and the Police and rock music, and so I just felt like, I've done this, and if I don't go now, it's sort of now or never. And the tropics has a way of just like blurring time even more than anywhere else. But
so you came to this decision on your own. I mean, like, that's pretty.
Yeah,
I'm always super impressed with stuff like that because
I had a lot of, through the touring, I knew I had a lot of friends. My old bandmate had moved to LA. I had a lot of friends through touring. I sort of had a peer group already. It's naive to think you're going to show up and, like, no matter who your peer group is, at least my experience in the first couple years is it's great because it gives you friends and things to do, and you get out and about, but you still find your own way. Like there's no way for your peer group, to a degree, at least in my experience, to just plug you into gigs, because the only way you really get those gigs is people having firsthand experience playing with you.
But it makes the move a lot less daunting, and you don't feel like, it's not like you moved to another country where nobody speaks the same language and like you're all alone. You're in a place where, at least worse comes to worse, on a Saturday night, you don't have to sit in your room with the television on by yourself, and that's,
Absolutely.
That's
And
huge.
I had great friends. I had a great group of friends, and when I got here, I had a great time. I immediately, like, sort of tons, I don't know at this point, I don't know what people say about LA, but one of the things I love about it, honestly, is my peer group, and the people that I've met through here and the friends that I have. It is, I think, basically, high on the list of what makes your quality of life, and I just can't say enough good things about the amount of people. And so, and the first year I moved, I was still sort of connected to a hustle, and I did some, I think in that first year, I did the Glen Campbell thing came up, which was a few gigs. I toured with this guy, Daniel Powder, that had a bad day. Guy.
Talk about how did you get the gigs with Campbell, and what were you doing with him?
Glen Camp, that was a subbing scenario. And that, so that was actually through, my friend Richard Fortis. I don't know if you've had Richard on.
Yeah. Why do I know that name?
But he's worth having on.
Not the guy from Guns N' Roses.
Yes, he played Guns N' Roses.
Dude,
so
yeah.
I met Richard when he was playing with Enrique Iglesias. So Shakira, Enrique Iglesias, and I had recorded on Enrique's one of Enrique's records, actually the one that he was touring on. And we were on some kind of bill, and that's how I met Richard. And Richard went from Enrique to
Guns N'
Roses. Well, Guns N' Roses. It was like the Axl Rose thing, and he's such a wonderful guy. And
that's wild. What a story!
I think Richard. So the guy.
This is. You know what I'm thinking about when you said that? This is what makes this country incredibly unique. And I'm not saying that from like a patriotism or political. It's like you don't like everybody. I know that. I grew up in New York, like you. I grew up in New York City.
Yeah.
Everybody's from somewhere else. And I don't think at least I didn't understand the allure. Why would you guys come? I don't, stupid Richard, kid. I don't know. But that's why people come here, because you can't do shit like that in other places where you're making, you're cleaning someone's toenails, and then the next day you're marrying the king's wife or something, right. It doesn't happen,
And Richard's was a New York guy, and I think he might have been living in LA at the time, but even crazier connected to the Glen Campbell story is the guy who was doing the gig at the time, who I needed to fill in for, was actually, his name is Todd Youth. Well, actually, he goes by, that was his sort of stage name, who was a punk guy, a great guitar player also. I think he might have been in Murphy's Law or
Dropkick Murphys?
No. I think I have it wrong. But anyway, Todd, and I should give you his real name because he's fantastic. But Todd was playing with Glenn. But Todd had been on tour with Motorhead and Danzig as well. So, and here I am.
Talk about diversity, man. Holy shit.
Here's like
Motorhead, Danzig, Glen Campbell.
And so here's Richard, and here's, Richard Fortis and Todd, and somehow connecting to me, who's like this, playing like weird Cuban music and fun, like
Mambo King.
Playing wise, we're just all completely different animals. Like, I'm not the rock guitarist that either of those guys are. Anyway, but so Richard recommended me to Todd, and so I got the call from there, and I got together with Todd.
What did you do with Glenn?
I did a few shows. Like, I had to fill in on a series of dates, and probably so I know, I guess this is the place to be long-winded. The one of the amazing things about that was they said, well, so you're gonna come in, there's no rehearsals, because they're already up
Glen
and touring.
Campbell? That's pretty daunting.
So here's the charts. You can have charts on stage, and here's the show. And so I spent, all this time just like grinding out to the recordings and with the charts. Thank God he never played MacArthur Park, because I don't think I could ever get through that chart.
Were you doing chicken picking stuff, or was it really more rhythm?
It was more rhythm. Although I had to play the baritone parts. So I had to play the baritone guitar on Wichita Lineman.
Oh, wow.
And, it was like the most incredible set of material I've ever got to play. And
that was before he had health issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was, but basically what they said was the one of my favorite parts of the whole thing was, or a fun story of it was this. So there's no sound check, and Glen's gonna, he's just gonna come out and play. And so the first song is a Gentle on My Mind.
Wow.
It's a pretty incredible song to play. And I'm playing acoustic guitar. And so the show starts, and I start playing, and he walks out, and he's facing the audience, and he waves to the audience, and he starts singing, and I'm hearing him sing, and it's just like, it's incredible. But I'm just got my head in the game. So you don't really, especially filling in and doing it, it's hard to really enjoy it, because you're just trying to get through the song, play it right, and follow along. And
was it weird? Like, I mean, his voice is so ever present was it weird when you're there and it's Glen Campbell singing?
Yeah, it's completely surreal. I mean, it's just, the material is mind blowing. You know what I mean? And so it's just incredible. And he comes out and he's singing, and his singing is just incredible. And the first song is Gentle on My Mind, and then the second song is Galveston, which is an amazing,
beautiful song.
And I'm playing baritone guitar, right? And so I grab the baritone, I'm playing, and Galveston has a solo guitar break, right? Or it has a guitar solo. It's a baritone part.
Oh.
But Glen plays the part with the baritone. So he's still facing the audience, right? And he's with it, but I won't say he's starting to go, but it's still like, he's in that moment. And I'm sure they probably told him that we have a sub, but whether he sort of remembered it at that point or not, it's 2010. And they told me, like, his memory's not so great, was basically how it was described.
Right.
So, but his playing and singing it's just incredible. So we're playing Galveston and the solo guitar baritone, and it's basically a duet, the solo. And so the solo comes up, and Glen turns around to play it with me, and he just sees me, and he looks, and I just see this look on his face, like, who are you?
Who the fuck are you? And why are you on stage with me?
And I'm just playing this part down, and he's playing it with me, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing this, and I'm like, I'm doing this, and I'm just trying not to screw it up. And the song ends, and he like turns around and he walks over to me, and he puts out his hand. He's like, "Hi, nice to meet you."
Oh, how cool was that, though, man? How sweet was that? That was really nice, man.
And it's the moment that, honestly, doing that, like I said, I've done a lot of filling, like, subbing gigs, and but it's that moment, like, when I get done with that. One of the other gigs we did was with the symphony. And also no rehearsals. The airline lost my gear, so I had to use his stuff in rehearsal. So I'm playing Glen
Campbell's
stuff.
guitar. What was he playing back then? These are always G&Ls. Is that what he uses?
He still had his Ovation 12.
Okay.
Where he would do the William Tell Overture.
Okay.
Lone Ranger, which was so fast that I had to like work on that for a lot to get it up to speed, but he just tore through it. And he was playing these like G&L sort of strats.
Yeah.
Really light strings, everything. And
with the weird pickups, like they're not like they're like half a coil.
Those like Hellcasters, I think, did that or something. It's possible, but they, but he, the truth is like that. Coming home from that was sort of at that point. It's like my feeling was, well, moving to LA was 100% worth it.
Yeah, of course.
No matter what happens now.
Yeah,
I've done that.
I just played on stage with Glen freaking Campbell.
Yeah, and he one of the dates we were traveling, I think, to Virginia, and there was fog. So the only people that at this point his band was like some guys from Nashville, and his musical director might be from Branson, I think. And so it was myself, Glenn, his wife, and the tour manager were the only people in LA. So one of the dates, it was fogged in or something, so we had to spend a night in Chicago. So I got to basically travel with Glenn and his wife and like talk and hang out a little bit with him.
Get to shoot the shit with him, like about normal stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and amazingly, when we talked about guitar, when we talked about playing, he sort of he would sort of go back to the Wrecking Crew stuff, as he talked about doing that stuff. Like, can't remember the specifics. I just remember thinking like of all his fame, and so he still kind of would talk about playing. I think he mentioned something about Jan and Dean, and it was because one of them was like a great arranger or something. And just I'm trying to process it all as it's coming at me. But and yeah, at that point it's like, well, good thing I moved to LA, because that wouldn't have happened.
What non like music topics was Glenn like? It wasn't ripping fart jokes, I'm sure. What if you happen to remember?
No, I mean it was we. Because it was easy for me to talk about music. I mean, he talked about the first Ovations, because that was his friend, the guy who made them. And he talked about how basically that fiberglass body of the guitar is the guy was an engineer, and that the material comes from like helicopter rotors.
Oh wow,
something
that's really,
like that.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah. So
man, what a great experience. And yeah, man, even if nothing else, if you don't work forever in LA at that point, you're like, you know what? Great move, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, like that. Iggy Pop is the same way, and it was just a random gig, and I know people. I don't want to like say like, oh, I toured with Iggy Pop. I've met the guys that do that. It's like I got called to do a gig with Iggy Pop, and I played with him. But Iggy Pop is such a massive thing that I can't help but I think it's like I played with him on American Idol, and that's how I ended up doing that. And so it was like. But it's such a special thing to even get near that as a musician, that I can't help but like I have that's another story.
Let's talk about Iggy Pop now. Like, how did that come about? Any cool stories with Iggy?
Just that it basically they needed somehow. I got referred because he was performing on American Idol, which is shocking in and of itself.
Weird.
And which is bizarre. And they needed a band to back him up, because I guess he just wanted to fly in and play a tune on American Idol. So somebody like
and the Stooges weren't around. The Stooges
weren't available. The Stooges wouldn't do American Idol for some reason.
Shocking.
What I mean, just him doing American Idol is hysterical. Even, and he lived in Miami. He lives in Miami, and he once I once encountered him on a plane too with my old band. Anyway, so I get this call, and it's like Iggy Pop is playing. Like, can you come and play? And I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Yeah, of course. So we have to like show up at the TV studio and do the song a bunch of times without him.
What
the
song?
Day before. Wild Child, I think, Real Wild Child.
Yeah, so that was his like mid '80s hit,
radio
hit.
Right, which I guess they had to like kind of think of something that might connect with people that are watching American Idol.
That's about the only thing.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to come on there and do raw power on fucking American. I want to be your dog. Yeah,
I think that would have been that's what I would have preferred.
Absolutely. There's a great. Just so you know, I don't know if you saw it. There's a really good documentary on Netflix.
No.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like literally watched it like I was doing cardio in the gym for 3 or 4 days, and I watched it. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I mean, I guess you could do Lust for Life or, anything or, there's plenty of songs that people would recognize, although they might not recognize them from American Idol viewers would recognize them from licensing or something.
Yes.
But so we went and played the song, like had to kind of play the song. And I just, felt like, oh my God, like I just have to dig into this as ferociously as I can. And I basically brought, what I have that sort of replicates like a Marshall and a Les Paul and just a cable with a tuner. And I was like, cause I'm not going to even attempt to pro it or try and be like it. And there was another guy, there was like the guy who Idol usually uses or something. And then it was just like a couple of people I didn't even know. Or actually I know the bass player, great, wonderful guy. And so then we had to play the song a few times and then send it to him. And then he would like come back to us with things and then
come back and do what?
Well, he would just kind of to approve it.
Oh,
and
okay.
Disapprove
it was okay. And so it wasn't like coming back to you say, well, drop in some hi-hat over here or like, he's just like, oh yeah, this is good or not.
Like this guy sucks. Let's not do it.
Yeah.
Or something like that. but and so, and then the next day that like they do it with and the amazing thing about it, really, or the amazing and funny thing about it is I dug into like YouTube and I'm watching clips of various bands playing it. So I'm trying to, dig into that.
And was that James Williamson? Was he the guitar player? Was he still with Iggy?
Yeah,
or no?
The Stooges. But for years in his band, he had a good amount of time. This guy named Eric Schermerhorn, who's older. I've encountered him a couple times. We have a lot of mutual friends, but he's phenomenal, sort of guy who's played with everybody and recorded with everybody. But he did that for years, and I was kind of looking at that because it was a little later era, and more around the time of those recordings. And so you're just trying to like the Glen Campbell thing, you're just trying to get it right on your own to show up and just like, crush it as much as you can and make it right instantly. So then he comes, and the best part about it was literally that, well, one, playing with him on stage is just like unforgettable. He comes out and it's literally like a
fireworks.
Like being in a tornado.
He's still that much energy.
He's flail. I mean, it's just all over the place. And there's literally like a picture on my Facebook of him like shirtless in front and like and me next to him. It's just I don't know how to describe the moment. I can't like, I feel like a little bit like it's oversold because it wasn't like I went on tour with him or anything. I like to set the bar there. But at the same time, it's like, this is what we do. I hustle, and to get to play with him. So,
but at least you actually played with him. Sometimes I'm not, once in a while I will have a guy and they'll say toured with Aerosmith, Steven Tyler. I'm like,
people do a lot of shared the stage.
Yeah, and I don't
shared
mind.
The stage is a good one.
Yeah,
I like to think like, I've received a paycheck and I performed with this person.
Yeah.
That is a valid credit,
Or if you're going to say that, say opened for, like, just tell the truth.
Right.
Like, opened for, okay, that's great. Hey, because maybe you talked to the guy. Did you learn anything? Or, the group.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no shame in that.
But he comes out, and this was a very visible event, and the fame, and he comes out, and it's just so even in something as sterile as like a live TV studio performance or something as ridiculous as American Idol. The feeling.
It's funny that you say it like that, because you have people all over. No. I agree with you, but I agree with you but like most people, like I think a lot of people look at American Idol as, that's the way to become a celebrity in the music business. You get
sure.
So it's just it's nutty for guys that are kind of like have a little mileage on them, like us, that like. It's like, reality TV basically.
Yeah, and the upshot of American Idol or the downshot, whatever you call it, is that people look at even instruments as like almost the same way they look at the way people sing on American Idol. Like you just do it, right? You just open your mouth and sing, and you grab a guitar and play, right? Can't you just play this song, or can't you just,
of course,
so people like, they don't see the path the same way.
Hey man, just fucking Google it.
Right. Like, you just do it, right? You just do it?
Just Google it. Ask your buddy.
So he comes out and he's like, it's just incredible, but literally there's like that little panel desk. And I think at this time it's like Jennifer Lopez and Steven Tyler and someone and whoever else, or this supposed to be. And I could see, and then there are all the contestants that are on the side of the stage, and I could see the look on Jennifer Lopez's face, because he comes out and he like comes out at her, and he comes out towards them. And he just comes out like Iggy Pop. He's just on like flailing around. And the look on her face was just like, oh my God, what is this? Like, is this person like almost like she was under threat, which is an amazing thing to see. And the contestants literally, like, they had never seen anything like it. And most of them, I don't know if any of them knew really who he was, because I remember them talking to me and people within the show being like, you guys are Iggy Pop.
Oh my God. They thought
Iggy, and they're like, and these guys, and
that the boys and girls is performance. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the contestants were like, that was amazing. Like, what they didn't,
what was that?
What was that? Basically, like, it was the biggest, what did I just see moment.
It's like on Bugs Bunny when the Tasmanian devil comes out and like this, wanton destruction in its path, and then he like goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I mean, just exactly, like the being able to be there for this, not like it's some history, but just this moment where this figure clashes,
are you guys Iggy Pop?
On top of this popular culture moment.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
Is so bizarre, and such a a thing that I really love the idea of.
But give him credit too.
Yes,
for being Iggy Pop, because he could have been freaking Frank Sinatra out there, and nobody would have known the difference.
Right, and definitely. I mean, among everything he deserves credit for, but really, more people should see and know Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
In my mind,
no,
everybody should, and especially, those people.
Yeah, he's a force of nature, man.
Not like those. I don't want to sound.
No, you mean those people?
No.
No. You mean they're not educated about like the history of some of this stuff. You know? And their perception of this is, first of all, this guy wouldn't have been successful if he had to go the road of TV.
Right.
The only reason he was so successful is because he was putting out something in there that it's kind of like the precursor to metal.
Yeah, and punk,
right.
They or the original punk. I mean, there's a lot you could go a lot of directions with that stuff, but
it's the point is it's a vibe. Alex Skolnick from Testament.
Yeah, I know. I don't know him, but yeah, I do.
He was in that band. We started when he was 16, and we talked about that in metal, especially in thrash metal, there's a certain mindset and a certain sense of melancholy that's sort of shared amongst all the people. And that's the thing that brings them together with that music. And that's the same thing with what Iggy was doing. You couldn't do that on stage. He wasn't the fucking Beatles. You couldn't come on a 8 o'clock show and do that. It was, you have to be in a stage performing, and like all the people out there who maybe feel a little disenfranchised or whatever vibe that's putting out are like, man, this guy understands me.
Right. It's outsider art. It's subversive, and it's art. And it also
is 100%. Yes. It's art, man.
It's also connected to a culture. It's similar, we could loop around to reggae, but the idea of
yes,
it has a point. It has a social meaning and a message and a concept behind it that means something, and not to take away from pop music does too. The Beatles, great pop music does too, but it's not the same. It's not quite the same thing. And Iggy has a place in that history that's just incredible, and those artists or people like that end up, I think, in a lot of ways they can be, even regardless of the numbers they sell or the businesses, they can be way more influential, culturally and musically than people know. It's the same thing with punk rock or anything like that. Those are movements. They all get appropriated and brought into the mainstream, but they start somewhere. They start with people like Iggy.
Out on the fringes, man. They start out on the fringes. So you looped around to reggae. Let's talk about Ziggy. How'd you get the gig with Ziggy, and what's been some cool stuff that you've experienced since you've been there?
I got the gig initially. I was filling in for one of his guitar players. He has 2 guitar players, and Ziggy also plays guitar on songs sometimes, not always. But I was filling in for his guitar player, Takeshi Yakamoto, who is probably somebody great to talk to as well. But while he was doing the Jimmy Kimmel show, and I sort of chased it down a little bit because my friend got a call to do it, and he couldn't. And I thought, man, after being in Miami all those years, and I played with this band Inner Circle when I was in Miami a bit.
Why do I know that?
Bad Boys.
Oh, okay. Right.
And all those, and so I had played some reggae, and
that was a huge hit.
Yeah, they have a really, beautiful studio in Miami to as evidence. But I just felt like, oh man, this, I'd really like to do this. And I sort of, so they put my name in, and I called after him and tried to make myself available as much as possible. And they said, and, also, I really felt like I loved LA was great, and I had been doing, playing rock music and, being my other self of playing like with singer-songwriters and doing all this stuff that in Miami I wasn't doing, where I was playing a lot of sort of groove-based music and pocket stuff. But I really, at that time when I thought of playing with Ziggy, I'm like, this is great. I can get back to playing some pocket and some I really love like old soul and funk music and doing all that stuff, and that so they said, okay, well, you'll come to Ziggy's house and play with Ziggy and for a day, and then if that goes well, you'll play with him and his other guitar player, and then seeing how the vibe is, then we'll have. I only got to have like 2 full band rehearsals before the tour started. So,
but that's pretty interesting that the first go round you're with him one-on-one.
Yeah, it's possible, if I'm remembering correctly, it might have been him and his guitar player, who was sort of his right hand man at the time, who is the person whose chair I'm now in. Not that I'm his right-hand man, but this, he was a guy that he played with his mother, with Rita, and had lived in Jamaica and had been with him for around 20, 25 years or
Adam,
something like that.
I think you are his right-hand man, and you're just being humble.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. He's got a few other right hands before me. So, and the interesting thing about that is you're playing reggae and you're playing. So I knew the parts to the song, to like five or six songs that he was going to sing. But an interesting thing about that in hindsight is you're there to play this incredibly groove-based music without a drummer, without a bass player.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So like
it's a serious vetting right there.
He knows if like you've got time.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty smart, actually.
These guys
really
have
smart.
more, like Ziggy's got more groove in his little finger than just about anybody I've ever played with. Like when he plays rhythm guitar, there's times when we play guitar together, rhythm guitar together, and then there's times he'll decide not to play guitar on a song that we've been playing guitar together, and it's like someone turned the turbo boost off. Like his groove is just, I love playing with him when he's playing. It's just astounding. And it's like it's been in him from, the early. So I had to play with no drummer. And then they brought in a bass player. The bass player came. And so I played in his little home studio with just like him and the guitar player and the bass player. And at that point, then we started going over the parts. Like he started, and then I got to do, I think, 2 or 3 full band rehearsals before the tour starting, which is
that's not a lot.
No,
at all.
As the contrast of that, I was only filling in for one sort of leg.
No, but still, you do 2 or 3. So I guess you got the gig. Did they even tell you, hey, you got the gig, or did it just keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they just say like, okay, come tomorrow, and the contrast to that, which I later learned, the hard part about, sorry, I'm tangent a second. The contrast to that is when Ziggy does like go from an album to a tour. For this album, we started rehearsing September 23rd or so, no, sorry, April 20. The first date was in June like 7th or 8th. So he starts rehearsing the end of April and we rehearse 5 days a week.
Oh, so he's not screwing around. He's not fucking around. He wants you guys going out there and like there is no mistake.
And you're translating the record into the album, and then you're redoing old songs, you're changing the arrangements, and then when you're on tour, he's listening to the shows and making changes, and so he's doing the work always. Yeah, he's always doing the work, and
he's always on. It sounds like
always. It's always like, as we're talking about with E, like punk rock. It's serious. It's like you're not it's not to be taken lightly. Not in a burdensome or heavy way, but just it's very clear how devoted and committed and serious about the music he is, and like there's no room for anyone else to not be that way. Like any organization, it's top down. And that's a good thing, really rehearsals start at noon and you play until 3 or 4
a.m.
There's no breaks. No, PM.
Oh,
PM.
Wow.
But there's no breaks. There's no like bring a bottle of water and bring some, trail mix, because you're just going to work, and that's it.
Yeah, I'd rather have that, man, where you're sitting there and, I mean, banging stuff out and concentrate wherever, you're all on the same page, like it or not. That's how you're going to get tight.
Yeah, you're gonna be, and you can't. It's not like you cannot be serious when everyone else is, But because not that like everybody's serious about, people are serious that are, especially people that are successful, but a lot of gigs and pop gigs, they just, priorities can be in different places, and the atmosphere is not necessarily devoted to the music all the time, because things, you know, is a one way of describing it. So, yeah.
Hey, if you could go back, is there advice you would have given, you know, your younger self that you think would have helped you?
I mean, I really wish.
I mean, besides move to LA sooner.
Well, that's even a tricky one. I met my wife literally 2 months before I moved to LA. So
oh, wow. Yeah, man. That's cool. Congratulations. That's cool.
Thank you. But,
you've been with her like 10, 12 years or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you, man. Nice.
And, you know, it was just a lightning bolt for both of us. So that's the way it happens.
Good for you, man.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Congratulations.
But actually, you know, I wasn't completely, I didn't know that I would be a musician, and wasn't committed on the path to it until probably like I hadn't made this decision until probably I was like 20 or 21. If I had, and I was always playing music. I was into playing the guitar. But it was just kind of another hobby that I pursued. And I know I worked with guys who, you know, came from musical backgrounds and just were doing it from a really, really young age. And if I could go back and tell know that this was going to be it, you know, then I probably would have wanted to know that. I wish I was like, not that I'm that good, but I wish I was less good at golf. And, and, you know, if I had portioned that time towards guitar more. Yeah.
But that being said, I hear you, but think about it. You're talking about most people. I mean, you have the occasional player that starts playing when they're 5 or 8, but the lion's share of people start doing this in, you know, 14, 15, 16. And that's not a ton of years.
Right.
In hindsight, you know, I mean, I know what you're saying, but like, I don't know. I think it's because I'm older. Like, I have a 28-year-old kid, and like, he'll tell me something now, like, I wish I did this. I'm like, Nick, you know, or my younger son is 26. My daughter's 18. I'm like, you know, fucking just relax. You know, you got plenty of time. Even if you don't do something till you're 30, man, you're going to be 30 anyway. So you might as well just do something fun, you know?
Yeah. I'm grateful. Even my father sort of consistently would always say, like, I don't think he says he didn't find his brain till he was 30. I didn't
either. I'll be honest with you. No, I didn't. Yeah. What does your dad do? What kind of work does your dad do?
He's a doctor. He's a physician. He's retired for the most part now. He's 85 or almost 85.
Oh, wow.
But
awesome,
he was really, you know, somebody that was, it wasn't just like what he did as a job. We grew up with like journals all over the house. And, you know, I was very lucky to just see that. And that's why he sort of was always like, well, you know, pursue your interest, pursue what you care about. So wow. I had the privilege, definitely, of being able to do that.
Well, I'll tell you something else that I think is really cool. Your dad being a doctor, that's more of an academic mindset. The fact that he was so supportive of, you know, he was so down on your career and into it, you know, that is like really cool, because 99% of doctors would be like, right, you know, my son's not going to be a guitar player.
I think, you know, I don't think I'm sure he wasn't without his moments and there weren't, you know,
but he kept them to himself.
Well, sort of, yeah, and for the most part, it was, you know this better than I, but you can only tell your kids so much. You just have to like,
absolutely,
you have to hopefully just give them you're just trying to equip them with tools to make decisions, and they're going to make those decisions, and hopefully you equip them with tools so that, the challenges of life don't, break them.
Totally.
Basically.
No, totally.
But other than that, you're an adult, you're just gonna be willful and do it.
Absolutely. And it was funny because like my daughter's 18 now, and like she's been telling us for 6 months, I'm going to be 18 soon, and I'd be like, and I mean, like, wonderful, happy birthday. I mean, like, it's really funny because their mindset is like, I could do whatever I want. You can go ahead. And that means you can fuck up as much as you want too, and there's no problem for me.
Right.
So,
well, welcome to consequences.
Yeah, right. And I'm a big believer of that, man. I've never been that parent that, my kid didn't do this. Now I was the parent, like, okay, hey man, just give them the consequence, whatever it is, they'll learn.
Yeah.
I thought
So
that was
Yeah, and so he, that really was a big thing. I think, like I said, there's definitely a moment where once you've done something, once I was able to connect something that they could connect, like there's long periods of time, obviously, where nothing connects, but as someone, people have a hard time understanding, even close to you, as sure from a lot of people that you interview, even what it is we do.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not famous or you're not a famous songwriter, like
they think they think you're a failure. Like, you're not Slash.
Right.
How are you gonna live?
Right. Well, what do you do for money?
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard to understand even like what that day-to-day hustle when you're not working with somebody famous, or like, well, a recording, like what the tools to do a recording session are completely abstract, whereas the tools to like be an attorney or a doctor are not quite as abstract.
Yeah.
So, well, that's not,
no, the setting, the template is much more familiar with being a doctor. We know how that works. You do this and you get paid. It's not, the template for musician is not as apparent for people that are not inside sort of like the industry or haven't been around and asked questions or just, taken an interest in it.
Yeah. Often not even for us, but
That was great.
Yeah. So, but having at least a thing or two where it's like somebody's name that they can actually tell their friends, and their friends know who that is.
So Shakira.
They think like, oh, you're doing okay. He's okay. He's
that
gonna
was the
be
breakthrough
okay.
for you, Shakira.
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he has literally said like, well, we weren't really sure. We didn't know if you actually had any talent.
Yeah, how do they know? That's another thing. If you become, quote, an attorney or a doctor, you have talent because you passed an exam that says. Meanwhile, which is total bullshit, because everybody listening to this, and you and I both know, the competency of attorneys, physicians, and any other professional is no different than the competency in fucking guitarists. You got like 5% at the top, like 60% right behind that average, and the bottom third just fucking suck. And it's the same thing with doctors. People just sometimes you don't find out about it until there's a real problem. It's harder to evaluate.
Yeah, and we also come from different places. Not to go too far into my father being in his 80s, he was an adult and in the workforce before the 60s, before even the Beatles and all that stuff. So to him, even that, like I've worked a long time, or not a long time, but when I used to show him music, it would all sort of. He liked, Gershwin and classical music, and he'd once said to me, "I can't get past the constant beating."
Like the bass drum? What does he mean? Like the
drums, the beat? I said, "Well, that's a tough. Oh, okay. Where do I start?"
That's funny. The constant beating.
Yeah, but it kind of makes sense if you listen to classical music or so. I
or jazz even to some extent.
Right. I eased him in with some like some some Joe Beam and things like that. Some like,
you should have given him raw
some
power,
Brazilian music and things. Exactly. Well, how about this, Dad?
Here's the video.
yeah. How about this? This is the video. Yeah,
this guy's called Iggy Pop, but you could just call him Iggy for sure.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So,
but honestly, I think that's really cool that your dad was so encouraging. He's coming out as an academic, man. Very cool.
Yeah, he also, he's as an academic, he's like an academic that actually understands admires the arts.
Yeah, that's
so
unusual.
it connects to that, and it connects to the phrase of like, my father was what's the adage, my father was a businessman, so I could be a doctor, and I'm a doctor, so you could be an artist, or something like that.
Yeah, sure. That's very cool, man.
And now we have to start all over again. My son has to.
Well, now at least he'll understand what he does if he becomes a musician.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk gear for a minute. What's your go-to guitar right now, Adam? And like maybe what other two guitars round out your top three?
Yeah, with Ziggy, actually, I've been playing a Strat, actually.
I think you kind of have to.
It depends. It needs to be the Strat at the moment. When I first did it, I played a Telly. Traditionally, actually, the reggae stuff, there's like P90 guitars and Les Pauls. I would like to use a Les Paul or P90 guitar in that gig, but because it would be fun because it just sounds big. But the band, it has two keyboard players, percussion, drums, bass, two background vocals, and
wow.
the single coil, a Strat just kind of finds its space a little better. Actually, the other guitarists will play a Telly or a Strat, and sometimes Ziggy will play a Strat. So Strat's back. It's a big, like 3 Strats up on the front line there. It's pretty cool sometimes. But
what is your Strat?
It's just it's like a custom shop reissue.
Very cool.
With some pickups. I had there's a guy named JW Restorations who wound these pickups, who did, and he actually did them through talking to me saying like, him saying, what kind of sounds, what do you like out of Strat tones, and what are you going to be using it for? And I said, well, it's going to be mostly, some clean stuff and rhythm. So it does slot in nicely for that. And
God, you're lucky that's a hard thing to do, to describe the sound, as opposed to just like trying 5 pairs of his.
It was really hard. Well, this guy he's not like, there's tons of great pickup makers.
Yeah.
But he's more of a guy that's like somebody referred me to who doesn't really have a pickup business, but he's a restoration guy.
Okay.
And he rewinds pickups for people, like, so they'll send him like 50s, holy grail guitars, and he'll rewind. So I thought, cool, well, this guy's got his hands on all this holy grail stuff, and he just, he did a great job, and he's made me some Les Paul pickups that are fantastic, and I it's just that's been really cool. But it's the Strat it's interesting. It's never been my go-to guitar, but it often is my go-to guitar in work, like in the working scenarios, because it just seems to, like, if I have to play solos, it's easy and can sound smooth. And if I like in like pop stuff, when I did like TV show stuff, the Strat just finds its place and is really agreeable to a lot of different things. I guess that's why a lot of these guys land on it. I kind of have a real, I kind of, if it's a desert island, I kind of like the Telly the most. And I have a really great, my two favorites are kind of, I have a late 60s SG that just I got real lucky with. And those two guitars I like them as, sort of creative vehicles. I like the kind of, I make different, the cool thing about guitars for me personally, I think this is how it really goes. in general, is the idea is not to just like collect them, to have a lot of different ones because they're cool objects.
Oh, you want to?
It's that like guitar will make you each one should kind of make different choices. So there's different music in them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
and that's what that's kind of. But it's funny when you're doing like, when I found myself doing pop stuff, and traditionally you end up like kind of grabbing a Les Paul and a Strat a lot more, but on my own, I do like the feel of the way, just the kind of the way it kind of, the torque of it or something, the slab also. So I'm a big, I love Roy Buchanan.
Oh God!
And even though I don't have like a vocabulary and anything near, like, I can't play his stuff, I just love and there's something about, well, that's enough to make you love a Telly, but at the same time, Telly is sort of it's sort of can be the most beautiful sounding guitar and the most nasty sounding guitar.
I think you need to like. I think there's certain aspects of, because I have a Telly and I never play it, and I need to sell it really, because I don't collect stuff. If I don't play it, I have no need to collect. I'm not a guy. I don't like stuff. I think you have to get it, and you have to like it. It has to. You have to. It's someone I talked to, interviewed, said a boat has a character. I think guitars have a character, and I think you have to vibe with that character of the Telly.
Well, it's not necessarily as user friendly as some other guitars. It's a little more it's a little more untamed, It's like, so when you get it going, when you get it going, and I'm not like a chicken picker or anything like that. I just like that, like you said, it's like, if you think of Roy or like someone like Jeff Buckley, it's like the most beautiful, some of the most beautiful tones. At the same time, it can be the most aggressive, nasty. I have a real, like noisemaker streak in me, and it can be the most, just gnarly instrument at the same time. Yeah. And that's kind of the fun about it. And you can beat on it. You can also kind of row a boat to a gig with it. Still pretty much play a tune.
I think what you said really hits the nail on the head. I think you have to tame it a bit. And I know for me, I have only been playing guitar like close to 3 years. I don't think I have enough experience mastering other instruments to play the Telly yet. For me particularly, I just don't think I have the knowledge base and the comfort level with the instrument.
Right. If it depends on what you want to do with it. It's also great if you want to just like, for slamming, like strumming and Springsteening that thing. There's nothing that sounds like that. Although Springsteen is underrated as far as his lead playing. He is a monster.
You know what, man? I've never really listened to a lot of Bruce's stuff for some reason. I love, as I've, in my later years, I've gotten to be less nerdy about all the guitar nerd guys, and then I like the sort of big picture guys who like might not be like you like the sound, like, the grooves
when he goes when he goes for it, it moves you. It's just like, I don't know. It's a weird side. It's not like one of my top things, but yes.
That's cool. So you got your Strat and then a Telly and an SG. I love my SG. I got to give a shout out to this guy, Dan Strain. He's in Nashville. His brand is Danocaster, and he made me a Jazzmaster that's just incredible. And that is its own kind of animal. Is that that's the one with the P90s?
They're not P90. They look like P90s, but they're actually Jazzmaster pickups. It's like its own kind of thing. And they are kind of odd animals too. But when you get a good one, and it's really cool. But you definitely can't play the same way on a Jazzmaster as you can, on a Strat or a Telly. If you go to make some big Hendrixy Albert King bends above the 12th fret on a Jazzmaster, it won't let you because it's got the string length that goes the way the bridge is. So that forces you to make different choices when you play it.
Yeah, that's another one I think I need. Like, I just saw one in my local Craigslist here. It's like, or on like, I think Facebook, local, and it's really a good value. And I'm like, man, but I don't think same thing. I don't think I have the experience. I'm still just learning like just new sounds at my Strats and stuff. So I'm, baby stepping it.
I mean, I also, they kind of find you. So when you get something that
dude, I totally believe that. I don't push for anything in my life anymore. I don't push anything. When it happens, and I'm totally cool about it. And it's when I start something new, like years ago, I'd be like, oh fuck, I got to have the whole thing laid out. I don't ever think I'm like, wow. And I came to a point like 5 years ago, I'm like, wow, that is incredibly stressful. Yeah. Why don't you just do like one thing and like then do the second thing? And I was like, yeah, why don't I? And I just started doing that. It's like, much less stressful. Holy shit. Hey, Desert Island Discs, in no particular order and knowing it could change. Knee-jerk reaction to the first three.
God, I don't even know if I can think of three. An odd one. The first one that always comes to mind, to be honest, is Jaco Pastorius' Word of Mouth. And I mean, I can in a way I can just leave it there. In a sense, it's like there's something about that record that just is infinitely, that just keeps, unfolding. Sometimes it's challenging in spots, and it just to me, that record compositionally feels very boundaryless. It's not that a familiar record, but it just falls under the category of music. People associate him with jazz and, incredible bass playing and stuff. But that record is like, just to me, a masterpiece. It's also sort of somebody, I tend to like these records where the story is like, oh yeah, he made that record and then, he was in an insane asylum. It's like the Pet Sounds kind of thing. It's somebody that's kind of unmoored, but and kind of losing it. But to me, that kind of results in almost a really pure art, because they're not constrained. It's that Polydor Roy Buchanan record.
I was just thinking that. I was thinking that when you said that, my first thought was, I wonder if that was why Roy was so good, because he was clearly unhinged, man. He committed suicide.
It's almost like there's that documentary that's on. We'll put that one in that greatest guitar player that's on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's like 4 or 5 parts to it or something like that.
And he's
I saw that years ago.
You get the feeling that he's kind of on the spectrum, and or just like, and it's hard to say. I sometimes make myself feel a little better about my own ability by thinking that of like people like Jaco or Charlie Parker, like people, autism and savant, like Asperger's, that stuff. Aren't they kind of new diagnosis?
Yeah, that was
when you look at these people and how they weren't really able to, how they struggled to function in society.
They
and
didn't
all
have
that.
the coping skills.
Sometimes I think like, well, maybe that, there's something to that they're just, they are kind of savants, they're geniuses, and it's sort of part of the baggage almost of it.
Well, but Buchanan in particular, man, I mean, he was clearly a guy, and he's one of my, I could listen to almost any, like Bloomfield, I could listen to anything. Yeah. He was in a lot of pain, man. That guy was exercising demons every note he played, man.
Yeah. And there's something, maybe it's like the contrast between my, fortunate, comfortable upbringing, but I can somehow, like, there's just something about those guys that feel like they're just sticking the knife in you or themselves with every note.
Intense.
Peter Green's that way.
Absolutely.
To me, that Live at the Shrine record, actually Danny Kerwin deserves credit on that too, because he's equally amazing on that
was
record.
Fleetwood Mac's guitarist.
Yeah. There's the one I like, Live at the Shrine.
I don't know that one. I have to check that out.
Shrine 69, I think it's called, and it's just incredible. I mean, Desert. Along those lines of the Jocko thing too, is that that record that he made, the Bright Size Life record, which is the Pat Metheny.
Oh
Jocko
a couple
thing.
of people
and
have mentioned that record.
Yeah, that's really deep. This is I'm kind of leaning into guitar stuff, so.
It's all right.
And like I said, I know people that can play. I can't play any of that stuff or anything, but it just, the kind of big picture of it kind of speaks to me. Like Metheny is, just mind blowing, but there's something that personally, like, there's like a storytelling aspect of him that whether I can, play anywhere near like he can, there's a storytelling aspect of how he constructs things that I think, applies to anything and that I connect with.
Well, another guy,
and
when you look at Iggy Pop was like that, except he was a vocalist.
Yeah, it's story. I mean, Desert Island stuff, like David Bowie is just in general, Desert Island, all the guitar playing that's on the entire catalog. I know I'm breaking the rules, but
that's cool. It's not a guitar. Yeah, you pick whoever you like.
But all the guitar playing on all the David Bowie.
Yeah, he's had some great good. Page played for him. Page Hamilton.
Did he really?
After Reeves. Yeah, and there's a story, like when I was doing research on, because Page is coming on the show, and the story is he had just gotten divorced and Page had just gotten divorced and broken up from his woman or his wife, I guess, and he went on a bender, and he had been out literally 30 days in a row till 4 o'clock in the afternoon the next day, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call from David Bowie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he's like, and he said he basically, it was such a critical time for him because he sort of he talk about an artist, but he gave him this opportunity at just such a critical time when he needed some focus. I'm going to ask him about that on the show, but I'm really looking forward to hearing that. But he's that kind of stuff. That's kind of the top of everything. Mick Ronson,
in a lot of ways
Reeves,
for me.
Yeah,
Adrian Belew.
Yeah, I got Reeves coming on here soon.
It kind of connects to all the I like jazz and stuff like that, but I do also like the I was huge into the Octung Baby era, the Edge, and actually a really my first thing that probably got me to air guitar on a tennis racket in my room was I think the first Police record. And all that stuff, and that whole sort of guitar as sort of an arrangement instrument and a sound, creating sound, with it. I really, I love that aspect of it, and that's sort of the bipolar nature of what I like is sort of, between sort of straight into the amp and.
And totally massive effect. It's interesting.
Out there.
You're thinking about Andy Summers from the Police. Like in any other band, that guy, everybody would have known his name.
Yeah,
but just because what an immensely talented and creative guy and brilliant.
Well, he was also he was older than those guys, and he was in the Animals. He was a pro. He was he had been working all through. That. Yeah. And he was a good bit older than the rest of them.
Oh, I didn't know
There's
that.
even some crazy story that the Les Paul that Eric Clapton played on the Beano Blues Breakers record, he traded with from Andy Summers. There's Andy Summers goes back. His biography.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
But yeah, that's an amazing, that whole thing. And I often tell people like, there's all the titans that everyone thinks of, like Hendrix and Jimmy Page and all stuff that we all Gilmore, but you rarely do a recording session. Almost never do you do a recording session. Well, that's not. Let me rephrase that. In pop music or anything kind of contemporary, you almost always do something that owes to The Edge or Andy Summers. Yeah, conceptually with guitar, with delays, or just the way the guitar functions in a track. Yeah. I think it's like that's sort of a little bit of like where my timeline of where I grew up.
Yeah, you're like 10 years behind me. I mean, when you said your groups, because I remember, of course, I listened to all those groups, U2 and the Police, but I was listening to them after I had already sowed my oats on, the Animals and Clapton and all that stuff.
Yeah, I had my brother 7 years older than me, so he was like in front of all that stuff, and that's how it was. And he saw all those bands like in clubs, including like Tom. I mean, he's got amazing stories about that stuff. Yeah.
Hey, this is a tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
That is a tough question.
Besides your youthful skin, God, do you like? We need to sell that shit. What the hell are you doing?
Is it wrong to say I like my wife and child the most of myself?
Yeah, that's.
Or would you like
it's not really yourself. It's
okay.
I think I like most about myself is my wife and child.
Is the people I've surrounded myself with. Yeah,
that doesn't count. That's like an Austin Powers answer.
Right. Okay. My
wife and child.
I think that is a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
Let me try and.
Man, you're buying a lot of time on the answer. So go ahead.
I know.
It's all good,
that's
man.
Right. This is not video.
It's all good.
I think I like. Oh my gosh. How do you answer that when you have so much self-loathing? Like any other.
How do you answer that when you have so much self-loathing? I love that.
I think I'm pretty easy to get along with, and when it comes to playing,
are you easy to get along with? Yeah,
when it comes to playing music, the thing I really like about it, and this is what I like about myself, is I like that it is a communal group experience. I really am not super interested in like being the guy that that I don't care if I get to solo or not, or show off. And I don't even like very much. I'm not impressive in a music store, and I'm not really, I'd like to be better at playing solo guitar. I just like to play. I like what happens when people get together and play, and I like to contribute to I like making, hopefully my skill or what's good about myself is that I make a band sound better than without me.
Yeah, that's just like marginally better than my wife and kid, but but
I know.
You get a pass because she said I like that I'm easy to get along with. That is a legit answer. So okay. You don't have to use, what is that called?
I hope I'm easy.
You needed a lifeline on that, man, or something.
Yeah, you did say it's a tough question.
It's a real tough question. It's funny. I can't wait till
You are talking to musicians, right?
Yeah, no, I can't wait till I get, it's going to happen where I'm going to ask that question and some guy or gal is going to be like, well, that's easy. Brrr.
Yeah.
I'll be
what's not to like? I'm awesome.
Yeah. I'll be like, wow, let's explore this. We need to put a self-esteem course together here.
That's right.
How about the other side? What would you want to change about yourself? Just one thing. I don't want you, because you'll give me a laundry list of.
That's a laundry list.
Yeah.
I would like to be a little less insecure and a little more proactive when it comes to kind of, I really struggle to promote myself or to be, and I don't necessarily think that's really a bad trait. Some of the people I know that don't struggle at all are not necessarily people I want to hang out with that much.
Yeah,
but I think there's a balance. I think most of the time I lean too far the other way. To even post something about anything I'm doing takes a lot of effort to like hit the send button on social media. It's like I just struggle with the outwardness, the pushing out of yourself into the world that social media and that this stuff involves.
Yeah. I think that is the number one thing that every musician I've talked to has in common. It's like, here I am, I've been running a marketing business for 20 years, and like you guys are like literally allergic to it. Yes. Like literally, like, like it's like an STD or something like that.
Well, the reason we probably practiced and hold ourselves up in our rooms is because as like a refuge from being, shy, to be honest. Like there's a weird,
totally get it.
There's a weird dichotomy, right? In that I'm shy, but I'm fine getting up on stage.
Right.
And,
no, it's, and that's you've isolated yourself for years in the room alone. And now what do you have to do for a living is stand on stage in front of 20,000 people. It's like, and be into it.
And to be honest, self-aggrandizement feels, especially as a guitar player, like we've all known people that really think really highly of themselves, and some are great players, and some people have every right, and a lot of people have every right to. I often struggle with the idea of self-aggrandizement. Not that that's probably not a good thing in general, but even self-promotion, the idea of like that concept is hard for me because I can't help but think like, yeah, I play guitar. I've played with people, and I've somehow managed to make a career of this. But I also play the same instrument that like Jimi Hendrix and Wes Montgomery played. Or Jimmy.
Can you see Wes Montgomery like tweeting about, or like fucking doing a selfie or an Instagram or something like that?
Right. It's not, or just like having an attitude about like being hot shit about myself. You know what I mean? About like my playing, like, yeah, that was great. Or you should hire me. I'm a badass. Like, I play the same instrument as these endless number of people, these virtuosos, or and so I have a hard time getting my head around that concept.
But you know what? Maybe this will help you. I don't know. If just look at it that you're sharing something that you did. I don't think like,
yes.
I don't think if you posted a clip of something, I would bet that Fender Stratocaster right there, that nobody's going to look at that and say, man, that Adam's really showing off. It's just it's not going to happen. That's just,
and ultimately,
it's not who you are.
People don't, people don't think of what you're not doing. They don't think like, well, that guy didn't play some really impressive. If you just communicate something that means something, that's all that matters. It can be a G chord, like the best, maybe this is a touchstone, like somebody years ago, the one of the best things someone ever said to me was, if you can make a triad sound exotic, then you're onto something. And that's sort of the pursuit to me. Like
but the other thing too is, if someone does think something negative, who gives a shit?
Right.
I mean, that's true also. And like another thing is, no one, and this isn't personal against you, I'll use me. No one's going to bed thinking about what Craig Garber's doing. No one's going to bed thinking what Adam Zimmon's doing. Trust me,
that's a point. I've actually said that very thing about, and not necessarily about myself. It doesn't work when you're talking about stuff, but just, I think I heard Paul Simon say that in a way when he was talking about people like artists worrying about their fans or like working on a project endlessly because they're concerned about how it will appear. And artists just make stuff, real ones, just make stuff and put it out.
Yes.
And he said exactly that. He said, that's actually, it's egomania, because you think you're being selfless and you're caring, but you're actually believing that other people are spending more time thinking about that. Other people are thinking about you, and they're not. They're worrying about themselves.
Of course. I mean, I'm lucky. Like, if maybe some nights my wife goes to bed, she's thinking about me. You know, I mean,
Right.
seriously, and that's really cool. But you know, that's it. You know, and nobody gives a shit. So yeah, man, just you should share some stuff out there, man, because you're a good player. You're super talented. You do a lot of good stuff. So that'll be your assignment. That'll be your assignment.
I appreciate that. You're right.
And then in 6 months, you come back on the show, and everybody will hate you because you've spammed the fuck out of them on.
That guy just never stops. It's annoying.
He's on Instagram.
I've seen his office for the day.
All day. Oh my God.
We get it. You're on stage.
Hey man,
your office.
This is a good question. What do you do when you're having a bad day to kind of turn yourself around, make yourself feel better, besides post on social media?
Troll social media. You know, I'm working on that. That's a work in progress. I'm actually starting to try and learn to meditate a little bit.
That's good.
And honestly, if I even spend 10 minutes, like kind of practicing, doing something that feels like any form of self-improvement.
That's great.
So I don't want to dysfunctionally like grab a guitar, although that's probably the best thing to do. But anything that just feels like, okay, I did something to like make progress, because going the other, like, just to try to get the bad thing to trigger something good.
Yeah.
You know, rather than it like
takes over your life
and making and just laying down and napping, although napping is definitely good and bad.
Yeah. I think everybody's a work in progress there. That's like interested in developing in some way. You know, you never like, man, I'm evolved now. Fuck the rest of it. You know, I'm done.
Yeah. I got this.
Yeah. I got this.
I'm always a little, I always look a little sideways at people that seem a little too together. I gravitate to the more neurotic.
Yeah. You need a little dysfunction to be normal, man. You know?
Yeah. Exactly. It seems like.
Person who's had the biggest influence on your life.
I mean, I think I'd have to say my father. So, you know, I really leading back to that idea of just, you know, pursue the thing that you care about, that you're interested in, and that you're passionate about, because you know, you're going to do that better than anything else. So, and being supportive of that idea, you know, and my mother too, of course. Yeah.
Do you have any non-musical superpowers, man?
You know, that question.
You gotta have something.
Maybe being long-winded, long-winded storytelling, and a rapier wit.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Long-winded storytelling. That is a first. Oh my God.
Ranting.
That's funny as hell, man. Any hobbies? Go ahead. You gonna say something?
No. Hobbies. You know, it's been parenting. You know, not a hobby.
That's not a hobby. There's no fucking way you would do that on your own. Hey, let's go do some parenting.
Yeah. No,
I just love parenting.
I just love parenting. I just, you know.
Do you have any kids do you have any infants I could watch?
Yeah.
Because I have so much free time.
Honestly, like, it's just the time for, if I have any time to work on music, that's sort of, you know, that's hard enough.
Yeah.
That and you know, the looking at the entire internet.
Another,
you know, I
great
think the
answer.
internet and you know, being in the last few years getting a little unhealthily obsessed with politics and things like that, kind of I kind of sucks up a lot of oxygen, unfortunately. And my hobby probably should be trying to find a more constructive outlet.
More constructive hobby. You know, man, I haven't watched the news broadcasts in at least 30 years, maybe 35.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, I know I'm really stupid with news and like I can never participate in those conversations, but I don't have any.
No.
I just don't have
Because
any negative.
Nope, it's good. It's good. And when it gets you, I'm trying to like just, spend more time and it's just more like it turns into just, it's like social media and all that stuff. You know, I think my hobby should be getting back to reading more books and literature. I used to kind of devour a lot of that stuff.
You're in a tough slot now with the age of your son. It's really hard to do anything. And then you're on the road, 25% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's tough, man. It's a tough time. It'll come back, man.
Yeah.
Like 16 years would be good.
You'll really get a breather.
Everything else, you'll be able to do whatever you want in like 16 years, man. It's great. Yeah. It's great.
That working guitar player retirement nest.
It's great. I don't even like if my wife says, "Oh my God, listen to what happened," and it's like, is it, somebody got killed? I says, nope. I just don't want to hear it. You know, I don't even like I'm really into animals. Mm-hmm. I don't even like seeing stories of like, because it's like tons of stories of, here's a pet and look at how he's been rehabbed and, some asshole pulled his leg off,
Right.
And so now the cat's got a nice home, but like, I don't want to go through that process of just like hating that person that pulled his leg off. It's like,
and so much of news is like, especially because of the internet, it's like, I get the feeling that a big portion of these terrible things, not the big things that we should kind of care about, but they were relegated to like local stories that eventually became folklore and cautionary tales.
Yeah.
Now it's just like something terrible happens and it's spread to the entire world and everyone has to worry about it. When it's like, just no, that's a terrible person and we need to just like move on and be better.
Yeah, I know.
But it is, it's challenging because that stuff, it's sort of, the lines between information and entertainment are all like blurry and we're all kind of susceptible to it. I actually, when I was making the record with the band Vida Blue, I was not looking at the news or my phone for like the first couple hours of the day. And when I did that, the first day I did it, I realized that like when I did open it up and look at like Twitter or whatever, I noticed I could notice my heart rate changing.
I'm not surprised.
Because, and so it sort of was the real check of like, I try not to, look at my phone or do anything for the first like hour of the day if possible.
That's smart.
But
now wasn't Vida Blue a pitcher for like the Pittsburgh Pirates or something like that?
Yeah, and we when I first worked with them, that's how I met Page, because he had sort of combined my band, Spam Allstars, with his band. That was his thing, which was and he sort of saw that band when I was on the road. He didn't see the band with me, but we played it. There's a DVD live at the Fillmore that we did, and
Spam Allstars.
Vida Blue with Spam Allstars. It's like we're all on stage together. I don't know where it is. It might be on Vimeo or something now. I should probably have that footage. up and use it on social media.
Share it,
as they say.
Share
I got so.
Here's a project I'm in, and it's like a three. You put the whole 3-hour DVD on there. Hey, when you have a chance, take a quick look at this.
Exactly.
This is just a little bit of stuff I did this weekend.
We actually had Vida Blue, the pitcher, come out on stage.
Oh, did you?
And he gave jerseys.
He gave
us Paige a jersey. And
he's got to be like in the mid 70s probably now.
I think so. I'm not much. I don't know much baseball, but
that's cool. That's very funny. Man, I'm going to ask you just one more question because
sure,
you've gone above and beyond, and
no one will anyone get through this entire.
Yes,
you're gonna edit it down.
No, let's give him a prize. This way you'll know if somebody got. I interviewed a guy named a guy in Nashville, brilliant session player named Jerry McPherson. It was a 3-hour interview, and he goes, "Man, how the hell are we going to know? No one's going to get through this." And I said, "Yeah, let's give him something." I said, "How about a free guitar lesson?" He goes, "Yeah." And I had people sending me notes on YouTube. How do I get my free guitar lesson? Which I thought was really cool. So, what would you like to give away?
Wow, that's a good question. How
about you will share some social media stuff? You'll add them to your Facebook.
That's easy.
Or Instagram or something like that.
That's great. Absolutely.
Okay. So if you've gotten through this whole thing,
and obviously if they're listening, if they're into guitar, so it's not just like, oh, you get to follow me on Facebook or be my Facebook, but we can have a dialogue.
That's right, man.
I'm into it.
Absolutely.
Because this is a friend space.
That's right. Absolutely, man. So let me ask you the question, and it's a last opportunity to have any self-loathing that you may want to get rid of for the day.
Oh, I'll take it.
Jump on that, bad boy. What's your biggest change in your personality, Adam, over the last 10 years? And how much of this has been deliberate and how much is just a natural part of aging?
I think, wow. Well, I would say, before I can even describe what it is, I would say it's just a natural part of aging. Because, I don't have a choice. I think trying to be
don't have a choice.
No, in the last 10 years is pretty much I went from being single to being married and having a child. And that is like basically it does relate to music in the sense that before, and this is kind of maybe this is a good way to wrap it up.
It's also your last opportunity to give a long-winded answer.
Right. Well, here it is.
Your forte.
That's right. So before, I was touring around. I was in music, and I had any relationship I had, basically had to, whoever I met and who I was with, they basically they had to sort of, I won't say come second, but until I met my wife, my priorities never moved from just playing guitar and my work and where I live. And it was only when I met that person and that I felt, sorry, I got a call. It was only when without even trying, when I met my wife, this sense of like, I could feel the priorities that I had had for so long and were just basically what I knew as normal. I felt that shift.
It's very cool, man.
I felt it shift into the sense of like, okay, that my life now has to sort of expand, and my behavior has to, grow and to encompass this other person, and that's, I don't know how else to describe it, but when I felt that priority shift, because I had relationships, but as soon as as soon as the pressure went up as to like, what are we doing now? Or even if we were live together, are we getting married or whatever? Like that decision of yes or no wasn't really a decision. It was just like, well, I'm not giving this away, you know? And it's not like I had to give music away, but it was just the feeling of like,
I mean, you probably felt you did.
How much space something else gets to take in my life.
Man,
and
that's
so
real cool.
Then learning to like, to let those things kind of learning to share that space with another person was like, you know, has been an evolution and a change that I only realized happened when it was happening, when it was presented to me through fate or whatever.
Dude, that's very cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, that is so touching. I feel like I should like upload the interview to you now just to let your wife listen to it, because this is like massive brownie points. And it's like, I feel bad that now it's the whole world's going to have to wait and she's going to have to wait. No, that's really cool.
I did meet her right before, and I still moved away. And then she caught up with me.
Yeah, but you know what, man? But you thought about this stuff, and then you know, that was really cool. I think that was really nice.
Yeah, I will say there's a moment where I felt the priorities change, because we're all confronted with, you know, before you met your wife or whatever, you're confronted with relationships, and you said that hit like a crossroads.
Yeah. And
until you meet that person, that crossroads is like, nope, I'm living this life with my guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, and then when you meet that person, it crosses into, you're going to share that life with somebody.
Well, I thought that was really cool. You said that, okay, my life needs to expand now. Like that was a conscious decision you made to incorporate this, you know, your wife into your life, man. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, yes, and yet I will say I get it's conscious in hindsight, but it's also like
it wasn't on autopilot,
right? But
you know what I'm saying?
Also like, you know, from getting married, like that, it's sort of, you know, happens to you and sweeps you up in a way. Mm-hmm. You know, it's that thing people say when you. I mean, a lot of things. People don't have successful relationships, and but there's that thing of when you know it, like, and we sort of we were lucky enough to have that sort of situation. You know, you find your person kind of.
That's good, man.
And so all that, you know, happened there, and that is, fortunately for your question, about a 10-year mark.
That's great, man. That's really cool. Thank you. That was awesome. Hey, let me tell people where to find you. I want them to support you. First of all, it's Adam Zimmon, Zimmon. And first thing you need to do is go to ziggymarley.com, and you can come out and see Adam and the band on their tour, and you can see when they're touring. Second, he's got this great side project with Oteil and Paige and
Russell
Batiste, Vida Blue, and check for them. And I will beat him if he doesn't at least post it once that record drops. If he doesn't post it on it, and hopefully he'll come back on the show and we could talk about it, and I could promote it, because I think he would fall apart if he had to promote it. But I won't. I will. Also, Adam. Check him out on Instagram at just Adam Zimmon. Again, it's Adam Zimmon. And Adam actually also gives lessons. And I would say, well, you can check him out online there's some clips in there with Ziggy and with I think Shakira. But to me, if you are looking for help to get in a reggae groove or any kind of Afro-Cuban stuff, I mean, anything for that matter, but if you have a particular niche, that's a hard one to fill, and Adam can definitely fill it. That's fair to say, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Self-promotion. There you go. Very proud of you, man. We'll fix you yet.
I mean, we can deal with any sort of, you know, sort of
groove
stuff. Like when you did the thing with Fish and I worked on, you know, TV show bands. So anything sort of in that world, you know, a rock guy at heart too. So I'm just not a blazing shredder when it comes to, that's what people associate with rock guitar now, which is kind of funny. But
I don't.
I think
yeah,
to a degree. But yeah, I'd like to teach and focus on sort of making just music making with people, playing guitar in practical applications for guitar playing.
Awesome. And you can hit Adam up at his email, which is Julian, Julian, Adam, ADAMZ, JulianAdamZ @mac.com. So hit him up and don't waste his time. Tell him what you're looking for and, get to it. Hey, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. You're very generous and really cool stories. And thank you. And seriously, when you drop Vida Blue, give me a shout, man. If you want to come back on the show, we can talk about the record. I'd love to do that.
Will do. And I love talking to you, Craig. Anytime.
Likewise, brother. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Adam Zimmon for spending this time with us. I really appreciate it. And good luck with the baby, man. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list right now. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.